Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to the Connected Wellness Podcast. I'm Rachel Ann. I'm here with the lovely Marianne, and we are so passionate about wellness.
Here in this podcast, we look at the ways our physical, emotional, and spiritual health is all connected and how we can take better care of our whole selves holistically so we can live our best lives. We're really excited that you're here with us on the journey.
Yay.
Welcome back to episode 52 of the podcast after
Yes.
a good break,
Yeah.
right?
We
Yeah.
had quite
So
the
we are
break.
back. Yeah, I
Mhm.
hope that you know, I don't know. I missed the podcast. I hope
I did
someone else
too.
also missed the podcast. So, I'm
Yeah.
excited to be back and recording a new
Yeah.
episode.
My mom said she missed the podcast. Shout out to you, Mom. Thank you for being a supporter.
Yay!
So this is
Yes.
for you, Mom. We're back.
Yeah. I'm sure my mom will also be delighted for a new episode. So, if
Yes.
nobody else, our moms are excited. So, I
Yeah.
love it.
Thanks,
Yeah.
moms.
That's great. That's great. So Rachel Ann, so you actually suggested today's episode topic. What is it? What are we talking about today?
So we're going to talk about adulting and change and what goes into it, why it's difficult, um, all of the things that have to do with that. And this came about from a realization that I had the other day where I was just like looking through my text messages and I was like, wow, the conversations that I have with my friends now, like it used to be like, hey girl, where are we going out? What are we doing? Blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's like, what's your recommendation for an air purifier? Like, what is like when's the next time we're gonna see each other? But that's 3 months from now because we're
Mm-hmm.
doing a lot of things or we live far away, stuff like that. So it's very adulting in nature. And I kind of like adulting and I kind of don't like adulting. And I have a hunch other people feel the same way. So it just
Yeah.
came about from that. And Marianne was like, that's a good idea. And here we are posing it to
Yeah.
you all to see what you think.
You know what's funny? A pretty common thread on one of my girls' group chats is like doctor recommendations.
That's
So
real.
if
That's
that's
real.
not adulting, I don't know what is. Yeah, yeah. I
That's
mean,
real.
it could make you sad if you think about it too much, but I mean, I think
Yeah.
it's important to share, recommendations and to support one another, right? So
Yeah.
like I think that's a good thing. But all
Yeah.
right, let's start with some wellness wins though. It's been
Yeah.
so long. I hope we have so many wins to choose from, but what are you going to share with us today?
Praise the Lord. I do have quite a few wins to share. But the one that I am going to share is I've been very consistent in my exercise and moving my body journey, and it like feels good. I'm noticing changes in my body, I'm noticing changes in my mood, all healthy changes that I want and that I'm
Mhm.
happy with. I got a lab report back and my numbers are going in the direction that I want them to. And I was
Yay.
like, yeah, because it's frustrating when you do the work and you don't see the results.
Oh yeah.
And so it feels good that I think I found like the equation of what it looks like for me to be
Hmm.
successful. I was like, oh, I have to adjust my working out a little bit. Oh, I need to adjust like what I'm eating a little bit. Oh, I need to adjust my rest. And I think I figured out what that healthy equation looks like for me. Yeah, and so I'm excited about it. It feels good when your body feels good. You know,
Yeah.
it's it's
Yeah.
it's a good feeling. So that's my wellness
Amazing.
win.
Yeah, congratulations. That's awesome.
Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah, that
Yeah.
is like the hardest thing to find the right balance
Mm-hmm.
between activity, rest, nutrition. Like, I mean, I feel like that's impossible because our needs are constantly changing too.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
I feel like one week this balance works out and then the next week it doesn't work out because
Mm-hmm.
of, other demands that you have or because the where I am in my cycle or because of an
Yeah.
illness or you know what I mean? So it's
Yeah.
like that's a really tricky balance I think to find. So good for you. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. Still
Yeah,
figuring it
sure.
out, but I feel like I've hit a space where I'm like, ooh, I have a rhythm. I think what helps for me is I give myself many opportunities to do the thing. So working out
Hmm.
doesn't just look like the gym. Like I have a
Hmm.
walking pad. So I'm like, Rachel, you have a walking pad here. and you have
Yeah.
time to work out because you put it in your schedule. So you can actually do this. And it's been really cold in the city, and I'm not trying to go outside. So I'm like, all right, walking pad, all right, at home workout
Mhm.
with, weights and all of that. So it's been cool. I'm
Yeah.
excited.
Nice. That's great.
Thanks. How about for you, girl?
I'm going to say that our podcast break, I'm going to call that my wellness win because I was
Mm,
not excited about it.
you are not.
I'll be
Marianne,
honest.
y'all, if
I was
y'all
like,
ever need to know if you are loved or not, Marianne was like, Rachel, I don't ever want to pause a podcast, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, Marianne, lots of people take breaks. She's like, I don't want
yeah,
to. And so I'm very proud of you. I'm very proud of you. Hmm.
thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's just like part of my identity, I feel like,
Mm,
is persistence, consistence, right? For things that I care about that are important to me. And
yeah.
I just did not want to like lose momentum. And but I do think it was the right thing, for the time and the season that we were both in. And so yeah, I'm gonna call that a wellness win that I wasn't like, no, we need to do this, no matter what, no matter if it doesn't feel like it's the right thing to do. So I'm calling
Yeah.
that my win. Yeah.
I am very proud of you. I was surprised.
Thanks.
I thought I was going to have to push hard, but God is
No,
good.
I try to respect boundaries,
You
in
do.
that sense. And yeah,
Yeah.
like I don't want to ever impose my freakish will and my whatever you want to call it. I don't know. Anal persistence, I'm going to call it that because it is a little bit over the top. There's persistence and then there's like stubborn. I'm a Taurus. I don't know if you believe anything about horoscopes. I really don't, except for the idea that I'm a Taurus and they're bullheaded and stubborn, and I am, so that's very accurate of me. So that's
I
why, like
can
when
see
I'm
that.
like when I say I'm gonna do
Yeah.
something, like I'm gonna do it like come
Yeah.
hell or high water or whatever, like it's happening,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah, you're welcome, Rachel. But thank you for challenging me, right? So that challenged me and helped me kind of lean into like, hey, do I need to rest? Do I need to take a break?
Mhm.
And I definitely did. So thank you.
Yes. Absolutely. We missed y'all very much, but we're grateful for the break and very proud of you, Marianne, for listening to
Thank you.
your body. And your
Thank you.
body was like, hey, girl, we need to rest right now. That's nice that you want to keep going, but we need to
Yeah.
not. We need to not.
Yeah.
And you were like, okay, fine. So good
Yeah,
on you for listening.
exactly. Thank you.
And everything was okay.
I
We
love that
took a
you could
break.
tell. You could tell that I was very reluctant, but literally by text message, like even in my text messages, it came out like, I really don't want to
Yeah.
do this. Okay. Anyway, but what you said, listening to your body, I have a really hot take. I mean, I hear you about
Mm,
what adulting is,
mm,
like all of the things that we need to do. But as I was thinking about adulting, this is my hot take that most of adulting is actually self-care. Like, okay, just hear me out.
mm,
Okay, because like things that are adulting are, what did
mm,
I say? Finding a doctor was one
mhm,
example. You mentioned things like taxes. I think
mm,
it's knowing how to take care of ourselves. So if we compare for me, I'll talk for myself in college. How did I eat, drink, sleep, right, in
mm,
college? I mean,
mm,
I could go on no sleep, drinking way too much,
mhm.
sorry, mom, eating
Yeah.
poorly, right? Not paying attention to the things that my body needs. And most
Yeah.
of the time I was fine. But
Yeah.
now I can't do those things, right?
Oh,
Like
yeah, no.
for
Mm-mm.
me, adulting is, hey, I have to wake up at 6:30 tomorrow for work, so I need to get ready for bed now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, I know that if I drink this, I'm not going to feel great. So I'm not going to drink this. I'm going to have water or seltzer
Mm,
or,
mm-hmm.
whatever. Hey, I really should eat a vegetable with my dinner because I know it's good for my body. And I'm not saying that in like a bad way. Like these
Mm-hmm.
are the things that I think are part of adulting, doing things that maybe are delaying gratification because we know that
Mm,
that's what we need, right?
mm,
Even things like going back to school so that you can get a better job or working hard in your job so you could do well. Like to me, all of that is adulting. And I think that's also self-care because self-care is doing the things that I need to be my optimal self, right? To feel
mm,
good, to function properly. And I thought that was an interesting thing because everyone has like the adulting thing, but then
Hmm.
everyone is like, yay, self-care, right? But I literally think that it's almost the same thing. Like name me
Mm,
something that's considered adulting that is not going to help you ultimately, function properly, be
mm,
better, do better in your life. I
mm,
don't know. I mean, I'm open to the challenge. You tell me.
mm. I love me a hot take. And I think I'm on board with this one because literally as you were talking, I asked myself that question you just asked. I was like, is there something that's self-care that is not part of adulting?
Or the
Or the
reverse.
opposite. Yeah, my
Yeah.
bad. It was
Is
the
it-
opposite. Is there something that's part of adulting that actually is not self-care? And I think what you are pointing out is that we don't fully understand what self-care is. I think what self-care is in like pop psychology and social
Mhm.
media is advertised as like go on your like luxurious vacation,
Mhm.
go to
Mhm.
the bath house for 5 hours. Those can be self-care, but it's a very like specific way to have self-care. Self-care is when you do something to care for yourself, period.
Mhm.
And if you don't remember our awesome episode where we talked about the 8 dimensions of wellness. So if you're caring for a dimension of your wellness, that is self-care.
Mhm.
Cool. So thinking about that, I'm like, yeah, a lot of the things that I think of as adulting, I don't actually like some of those things. And then but with self-care, we're like, oh, but we like self-care. I think that's the thing. And so we're a little bit
Yeah.
nitpicky with what self-care actually means. But in reality, there's aspects of self-care that we don't actually like to do, but it's just healthy and good for us. And so
Right.
we should do it. And as adults, we typically have like more agency, we have more access to resources, we have more say in our schedule, so we can actually do those things. I think I'm on board with your hot take. I think I'm on board.
So yeah, I remember we did self-care in literally episode 1. And I
Mm,
remember that you said self-care is not the pretty journal and the candles and the whatever and the whatever. Like it's very aesthetically pleasing,
mm-hmm,
on Instagram. That's not actually self-care. Like you said,
mm-hmm,
self-care is doing something to care for myself, right? And I remember the way we had put it was like it's whatever I need to do to feel my best, right? To feel my
mm,
best physically, emotionally, spiritually, financially, occupationally, socially, whatever it is, all those dimensions of wellness. And I think a lot of times it's not necessarily fun stuff. Like
mm,
I hate going to the doctor. I hate any medical anything, but I need to take care of myself and that involves
mm-hmm,
sometimes going to the doctor and getting a checkup or doing labs or whatever. So
mm-hmm,
I call that adulting and self-care at the same time. And that leads me to, okay, I hear a lot about like when we think about self-care, or even like on a much smaller scale, like especially if you're overwhelmed, you're tired, you're stressed, like asking yourself, what is it that I need right now? Right? We've
mm,
talked about this. Do I need a workout or do I need a
mm,
nap? Do I need to eat something or do I need to call someone? Like, what is it that I need? And
mm,
for me, that's kind of hard to answer sometimes. And I think it's because I'm not mindful enough. Like I'm not tuned
mm,
into my body and my mind enough. And I think that that requires mindfulness, which I know we've talked a lot about as well. So I just found it interesting as I was thinking about these that I was like, adulting is actually mostly self-care. And
mm,
knowing what self-care you need comes from a mindful awareness of,
mm,
yourself. And I
mm,
just thought it was interesting how it all tied in. And, if you feel like you're not adulting properly, look at actual self-care. What do you need? If you don't know, and you're having trouble figuring it out. Like I still remember when we had that episode with I think it was Dana about somatic therapy, this
mm,
idea about like tuning in to your body. I kind of feel like I don't know how to do that. So that's something I want to work
mm,
on. Like, I don't know how to be like obviously I know how to be like I'm tired or my head hurts or like something very specific, about my body, but like what do I need? Do I need to stretch? Do I need to move? Do I need to sleep? I don't know, So I think you
mm,
can cultivate that with a mindfulness practice. Like you shared with us, I remember in our mindfulness episode, like these questions that we can ask ourselves periodically, right? Like, how am I feeling right now? What am I thinking about right now? So things like that. So I think it's connected to mindfulness. That's the second half of
Mm.
my hot take.
I definitely think there is a connection there. And I appreciate you, again, volunteering yourself as tribute. Y'all, Marianne be up here, be like, this is all my business, help me. So we appreciate Marianne because she represents the people. Um, I appreciate you saying that you have a difficult time answering that question of like, what is it that I need right now? That's real. A lot of people struggle with that because we don't necessarily think about ourselves as much as we should, right? We've learned to either think of ourselves, and that means that we're selfish and self-centered, or we don't think about ourselves, and that means that we are like the last priority on the list and we're completely forgotten about and our needs don't matter at all and we're people pleasers, right? There's very extremes with it. And in the world that we live in, they like extremes. They don't like things in the middle. Really, mindfulness and asking yourself what it is that you need is just taking a time to pause and check in with yourself. And doing that is difficult, especially if it's the first time you have been doing that. And so I
Yeah.
think another way to think of it is like, oh, like, do I need, I don't know, do I need to go to the gym or do I actually need to take a nap right now? It's like, well, what are the sensations that are happening in my body? What are the thoughts that I'm having? What are the plans that I have for the rest of the day? That can help you answer that question. And then if it's difficult for you to accept that answer, therein lies a big, big question that you want to talk to with a professional of some sort and be
Hmm.
like, it is hard for me to accept the fact that I actually need rest. My body feels tired. My thoughts are running around everywhere. I actually do have time to take a nap, but I literally feel like what I understand about productivity will not allow me to rest. Right.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
there's so much to unpack there. So I appreciate your honesty. And I think a lot of people are in that boat of, I don't really know how to answer these questions honestly about myself. And therefore, things like self care, adulting, all of that can be even more difficult. When in reality, those things are maybe not always so enjoyable. Like paying taxes is adulting, and I hate paying taxes, but I do it because the IRS says that I freaking have to. But you know what I mean? So I say all that to say there's aspects of adulting that are unpleasant and there's aspects that are quite pleasant and awesome. And like learning how to be okay with answering that question
Hmm.
honestly, even if it's something that's different than we want it to be, is a skill. It's something to
Yeah.
keep learning and getting at.
Yeah. But again, the paying taxes, as unpleasant as it is, like we do it because it's good for us, not good for us maybe physically, but like it's good for
Mm.
us in that, we won't have the IRS after us. So like we do something
Yeah.
unpleasant now to avoid future unpleasantness, which I
Yeah.
think all of it is. Like do the workout now that might feel unpleasant because I know that later on my body will feel good, to
Hmm.
avoid potential illness, potential body wear down, or what, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I think that's what it is, like the delayed gratification. We don't know that when we're young. We're incapable of
Mm,
delaying
mm,
gratification when we're young. Like a baby wants
mm,
everything right now and they scream until they get it. And I'm sure there's some evolutionary advantage or whatever to that. But once you
mm,
become an adult, like we have to delay gratification in order to succeed, right? In order
mm,
to succeed at everything, not just like
mm,
professionally. So I think it's
mm,
it's it's really interesting. I think boundaries are a big part of adulting properly too,
mhm.
yeah, so I just think it's so interesting that all of the key things that we talk about over and over again, I feel like it's all encompassed in
Mhm.
this adulting. Yeah.
I feel you. You said something interesting about when we were children and how it's different than adulting. Definitely delayed gratification, I think, is something that as children we're like, what is this? No, I want it like
Yeah.
now, right?
Yeah.
And then when we're talking about people who may be neurodivergent, that idea of delayed gratification, even as an adult, they're like, no. And so all of that is very real. I'm also thinking though that as children, we don't have much say over things, which makes makes sense. We shouldn't. We're children, we're growing.
Hmm.
But we don't have much say over our time or our schedule or what we eat and all of that. It's usually like given or told to us, and we just kind of follow the directions to do that. And I think
Right.
that's one reason why adulting is actually so freeing, is because you get to decide those things for yourself.
Right.
That's like one of my favorite things about adulting. I was just like, yo, I get to decide what I'm eating for dinner. And tonight it's going to be popcorn. Get at
Yeah.
me, you know? And then that, we learned in that way because I dealt the consequences of my actions where I'm like, dinner is not popcorn, Rachel. It has to be something else. So I learned. Good job, Rachel, learning. But the idea of having agency in deciding what your day looks like and how you want to spend your time, how you want to spend your money, and then dealing with the consequences of your actions helps you grow.
Yeah.
And that is also continued adulting. So when you don't pay your taxes, the IRS will contact you. That's how you learn you need to pay your taxes and people were
Yeah.
lying to you and you said you can just get away with it, right? Stuff like that. So adulting has, for better or for worse, it has an agency aspect to it, which I think I love, but it's also being I love my parents, but also being like a child of immigrants. Like I'm like, ooh, I get to go off and do my own thing, right?
Hmm.
I'm not under like their ideas anymore. I get to go and decide what it is I think and feel about something. I know what
Hmm.
they think and feel, and I was raised in that way, but what if I want to explore things so that I know these things for myself? So
Right.
adulting is very empowering for many different reasons. It's tiring and sometimes
Yeah.
expensive, but it's empowering.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's interesting. You brought up the like you get to choose things like what you eat for dinner. Have you ever heard that before? It's like, oh, one of the best parts of being an adult is you get to choose what you want to eat for dinner every day. But one of the worst parts of being an adult is you have to choose what you want to eat for dinner every single day, So there's good
Yes.
and bad, of course, to having that much freedom.
Yep.
And if you are someone who has difficulty, like you said, with that delayed gratification or with like understanding the consequences of your actions, I think it can be a very difficult, this idea of adulting, and it can
Yeah.
cause a lot of difficulty. So yeah, it's interesting. But you brought up in the very beginning, change, right? and
Mm,
and I think that, um, being able to adapt to change is another part of successful adulting, because
yep.
as adults, when we are confronted with constantly changing, scenarios and circumstances, which we all are, no matter what you do, where you live, like society is constantly changing, and we don't have somebody kind of handling things for us, right? Like we are in charge of everything ourselves. Like if we can't adapt to change, kind of quickly and successfully,
Mhm.
we're going to have a really hard time, being a functioning adult. So
Yeah.
that's a big one. And I think no matter
Yeah.
again what kind of person you are, change is difficult. Change is scary, and yeah.
Yeah. I have so many thoughts and feelings about change. I feel like the way that we learned change as a child is is super false actually. We're like embrace change and everything can like work out and like, unicorns and butterflies. That definitely can be the case sometimes with some things of change. But there's other aspects of change as adulting and like special bonus. We're recording this January 2025. The amount of change that we have seen. I mean, Maren and I were in the United States. So the amount of change we have seen just in the United States, Lord have mercy. It's just like there's no way to anticipate what can come when you do something, right? Because
Yeah.
so many things that were on unprecedented times, right? You see those memes online that's like, I'm sick of waking up at unprecedented times. I would like precedented, please. So change it's
Mm.
very frustrating for a very real reason, especially where we are right now. I do think this is a great place to remind ourselves, though, especially as Christians, that God is not afraid of whatever is on the other side of that change. God
Hmm.
is not surprised by it. God already knows, God already has a plan. All we need to do is abide by what it is that He's telling us to do in this moment of change.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
it. It's going to be hard. It's going to be stressful. We may be angry, sad, worried, all of the things. So we bring that to him. We don't deny our emotions just to
Right.
embrace God's plan. No, you can embrace God's plan and be like really mad at the same time. That's like legit.
Right.
God is not offended by that. So that's one aspect of change. Then I'm like, as a kid, y'all told me that the world's my oyster. This world does not seem like it's my oyster. And maybe I don't understand what oysters are. I don't know. So
Oysters are
there's
kind of gross. So yeah,
sorry.
I don't really love that analogy if you're not a fan of oysters, like
There we go.
yeah.
So for some people, the world is an oyster. If they don't like oysters, the world really seems like that.
Yeah.
Oh, this
Yeah.
is getting depressing really quick. So I say all that to say, change is hard, and that is real, and things are difficult to predict. And when we have predictability, we tend to feel better, we tend to feel secure.
Hmm.
But there's a lot of unpredictability right now. So feeling
Hmm.
insecure, feeling worried, feeling frustrated, not wanting to try that new thing because you just can't handle another thing of change, that's
Yeah.
real. That's real.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the uncertainty and the lack of control, right? And
Mm,
the lack of perceived control because again, I have no idea what's going to happen tomorrow, so therefore I have no control over what's going to happen tomorrow. I think is a big part of that discomfort. And
mhm.
what I think is so important is such a good exercise is focusing on, well, yes, I can't control what's going to happen tomorrow, but there are things that I can control,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And kind of like you touched on, like I know that God is in control. We had a
Mhm.
whole episode about control, and
Mhm.
I can control my, trust in him, my relationship
Mhm.
with him, right? That can give me some peace no matter what these changing external circumstances are, right? I
Mhm.
can control how I take care of myself, right? So
Mhm.
that I am maybe more ready to face whatever is going to happen physically, emotionally, spiritually. So I love this exercise of like sometimes if you write down like all of your worries, right? And then
Mm.
you separate them into, okay, well, these are the things that I can't control. So literally like get them out of your face. Like
Mhm.
erase that list or throw that list away or imagine giving that to God. I actually have this illustration that's my phone background right now that I found that I just love. It's a woman like with a pile of like just like black scribbles, right, to represent, I think, all the anxiety and handing it
Mhm.
over to God, right? And
Oh,
so
that's
all that stuff
beautiful.
that you can't control, like I have no control over it, but God does, right? And
Mhm.
so just give that to Him and then focus on, okay, if I'm anxious about these things and I have some control about them, great, let's make a plan. Right?
Mhm.
Like, what can I do I'm anxious about my taxes, right? Okay, but I have control over that. I can start
Mhm.
gathering my paperwork. I can contact my accountant. I can, do blah, blah, blah. So I think that's so important if you can distinguish. And then
Mm.
it's not easy, obviously. Just because I have no control doesn't mean I can stop thinking about it or worrying about it. But just to give myself that idea that okay, I can't do anything about this, but give it to God can maybe
Mm.
release just a little bit of that anxiety or worry in my mind about that thing.
Mm. Mm. I think that's a really good point. Control what you can control, and the things you can't control, you give it to God. Even the things you can
Hmm.
control, give it to God too, of course.
Absolutely, yeah.
Um, And I think what you're really highlighting is one of the difficult parts of adulting is accepting the fact that you are not a superhero.
Hmm.
As kids, we tend to look at people of certain roles or titles as like superheroes. They never do wrong. They never get sad. They're never stressed out. They can deal with every single problem. Right? We tend to
Hmm.
feel that way about adults. And then we become adults and we're like, dang, we really have no idea what it is that we're doing, right? I
Hmm.
hope I filed
Hmm.
my taxes right this year. Hopefully. I think I did the right thing on my end, but I don't know if I actually did it
Yeah.
right, And so stuff like that. Accepting our limitations is difficult, but when we do that, we're actually freeing ourselves of the sins of pride, of doing too much, of putting ourselves in situations that we're actually not called to be in, and we're letting God be God. Really,
Yeah.
that's what it is. Accepting our limitations doesn't mean that we is something wrong with us that's so bad and awful. We were created this way because we're humans. Humans just naturally have limitations. That's just what it means to be a human being. And accepting that frees yourself of just so much anxiety and angst and the whole shebang. So, I think that's
Yeah.
a really good point about control.
Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned this idea of unprecedented times, right? And can
Mm.
we just have things that are expected? But I was just reading this book actually, and it's just about like dealing with stress and things like that.
Mm.
And one of the suggestions is like we need to stop um, being surprised by unexpected things. Like basically,
Mm.
we need to expect
Yeah.
the unexpected. Like
Oh,
so that
that's
whenever
good.
things happen, and it doesn't have to be bad, doesn't all have
Mhm.
to be bad things, but like
Mhm.
why should I assume that I know what's going to happen tomorrow,
Yeah.
or the next day or next week or next year? Like if I look at historical, patterns, no, I
Mm.
never know what's going to happen. Things happen and I don't expect them. So if we just kind of expect the unexpected, then maybe that can release a little bit of the disappointment and anxiety and worry about when things happen and we're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this happened. Well, instead
Mm.
we could be like, oh, something unusual happened. I was expecting that. You know what I mean? Like I think it's just a little bit of a mindset shift. And then again,
Mhm.
sometimes the unexpected could be good, right? Maybe that's the unicorns and rainbows you were referring to earlier. And sometimes it's neutral too. Like it's not always
Mm.
bad things, but I think the idea that I don't know what's going to happen or I can't anticipate everything, of course I can't anticipate. I'm not God.
Yeah.
Why should I be able to anticipate, how this person's going to react or what's going to happen with the stock market or what's going to happen in
Mm.
politics or
Mm.
or with my partner or with what, like why should I be able to anticipate these things? I have no
Yeah.
control over them. So it's almost like just a little bit of more openness, to
Mhm.
whatever is going to happen, and a little bit more preparedness, right? So so I'm
Mm.
not so caught off guard every time something strange happens or unusual
Mm.
because I've kind of expected it.
Yeah. Yeah. What's the saying? Stay ready so you don't have to get ready. Um,
I don't know that, but I that makes sense to me. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. I think it's a saying. I don't know. In the comments, tell me if I'm bugging. But it reminds me of that. And I think that's a really big reason why people don't like change is because they're like, well, I can't expect it. Like
Hmm.
I don't know what it is that's going to happen. So then I must prepare for the worst case scenario,
Mm.
A through double Z that I've created in my head. Hello, anxiety people. I'm talking to us,
Mhm, mhm.
right? And so instead of doing that, what you're proposing is being it is more of trusting that you will be able to handle the worst case scenario. Not so much because you're so awesome, you are awesome, but more so because you trust in the Lord.
Mhm.
And because you trust in the Lord and how that's going to translate into your ability to deal with these things and how he will be guiding you to deal with these things. So
Yeah.
you can't prepare for anxiety scenario A through double Z. That's exhausting. That's probably not the best use of your time. I don't really think that's how you want to live your life. But what you can do is say, whatever the worst case scenario is, I know that the Lord will be with me. He will provide. He will give me whatever it is that I need in order to manage that. And I think that can help a lot with with the dealing with the never-ending unprecedented times
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
expecting the unexpected.
Yeah. I like that, especially that the A through double Z, all of the terrible scenarios. But let me counter with the idea that we do like to be prepared.
Mm.
So what if and I feel like I've heard this before. Like, okay, there's a best case scenario and there's a worst case scenario. But there's also like a most likely case scenario, which is usually like somewhere in the middle. So maybe
Yeah.
we prepare for the most likely case scenario
Mm.
because it
Mm.
is comforting, to be prepared for something.
Mm.
But always with that in the back of my mind that I should expect the unexpected, right? So,
Mm. Mm. Mm.
that takes me back to being in the present, right? Like if I'm just going to be in the present right now, I'm just going to wait for whatever's going to come is going to come, right? I don't know what it is, but it's going to come. So I'm just going to focus on right now. What can I do
Mm.
right now? Maybe for the middle case scenario, right? That might happen. I can be, a little bit prepared so I'm not
Mhm.
completely freaked out. But yeah, I don't know. For me, it's just all connecting. I don't know if I'm crazy or something, or maybe it's my spaghetti brain, but everything is just kind of connecting,
Mhm.
all of these ideas that we've been talking about for 2 years. Yeah.
Yeah, it's all connected. Thus,
Yeah.
Connected Wellness Podcast. As
Oh
you
my
sip
God.
from your tea,
I didn't
we're
even
all
do that on
aligned.
purpose. Yeah.
Everything is aligned.
See, that's unexpected. That was a good unexpected that we made it all fit while I was taking a sip. Yeah, I love it.
Also, you're not crazy. It is
Thank you. Thank
literally
you.
all connected.
Yeah.
Like if y'all have ever been in any type of professional healthcare system, whether it's therapy, whether it's like a medical doctor, they will tell you everything is all connected. Like, you know what I mean? How you think and how you feel impacts your physical health issues. Your physical health issues impacts how you think and how you feel and how you show up to work. It's all
Hmm.
connected. It's all
Hmm.
connected. And I think that's one way that we can really be grateful to God for is that He created our systems to be so interconnected with each other, so holistic. Like the Lord desires so many wonderful things for us in all these different dimensions. And to the point where when we have goodness in one area, it should seep into other areas too. So
Yeah.
I don't think you're crazy.
Thanks. I appreciate that. So, just for fun, I'm going to ask you, what's your least favorite adulting task? Is it taxes or do you have something else?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Okay. Immediately, the things that come up, taxes, um, cleaning.
Ugh, yeah.
I hate cleaning. Like I hate it so much. I can't wait to be a millionaire so that I can hire somebody to clean.
I
And
hate
it's
it. Actually, yeah, I didn't even think of that, but that's probably my least favorite. Yeah.
I don't know. Thank God I'm married to somebody who loves to clean. That really helps
Uh,
a lot. Um, those are the two that come to mind. What I'm realizing it's things that require more energy than what I want to give.
mm-hmm,
Like
mm-hmm,
I don't want to spend my time cleaning. Like no,
mm-hmm,
I want to spend my
mm-hmm,
time reading. I don't want to spend my time freaking getting all my papers together and being like, "Hello, accountant. Oh, I still owe money even though I thought I did it right this time." Fine.
mm-hmm.
You know, and I just don't want to do that. That's not how I want to spend
Yeah,
my time. And
yeah,
like as
yeah.
somebody who loves the agency of adulting, I'm like, I don't want like I have agency to not spend my time this way, but otherwise I'd have a dirty bathroom and the IRS would hate me. So that's why I
Yeah.
have to do those things. How about
Yeah,
how about
yeah.
for you?
I mean, you brought cleaning to mind, but the first thing that came
Mm,
to my mind was pretty much anything financial.
mm,
I hate financial planning. I hate talking
mm,
about insurance. Every time we meet with our like financial planner guy, I want to like eat ice cream and color like afterwards and watch cartoons. Like I need to like
yep.
offset how like heavy the adulting was with like something very unadult.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, which we don't have to do that very often, but like budgeting, like anything money
Hmm.
related, I don't know why. I just like, even though
Oh.
obviously I'm good with numbers, I'm a math teacher, like I have no problem with numbers, but there's just something
Mm,
about the money. So obviously taxes too. And I'm the one that
mm,
does our taxes on TurboTax. And,
mm.
literally today I just got my first couple tax documents in the mail and I was like, ugh, here we go. Like I got to
That
start
time.
compiling these. Yeah, it's that time. Yeah, but thank God
Mm,
if we weren't making money, we wouldn't have to be dealing with money issues. So
mm,
ultimately it's a blessing. And when I say money issues, I mean like the taxes and the
mm.
planning and the insurance and the whatever. But
The
but
things that make
okay,
you want
what
to color.
yeah, exactly. Like literally, like I'm like get the ice cream out of the freezer, put the cartoons on. I can't. Um Okay, well, what's your
That's real.
favorite thing? Yeah, because we said it can be fun and
Ooh.
liberating, and you feel free that you can do what you want to do.
Hmm. I think as an adult, I really do love having say over how I spend my time.
Mm,
And I feel like I can just say no to something because because I'm like, no. And like that
Yeah.
is like a good enough reason. No offense to kids and teenagers, but typically when they say no, we don't take them as seriously. And even as adults, sometimes we don't take
Yeah.
adults seriously too, and
Yeah.
they say no, which is sad. But I don't know. I get to decide how I spend my time. Like this Saturday, my husband will be out of town, and I'm gonna have a full day of just reading on this couch
Nice.
with that
Yeah.
candle that you see. That's what I'm gonna be doing all day. Probably
Yeah.
I'm gonna order some food because I'm not doing a thing. And like
Yeah.
I get to choose to do that,
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that is
Yeah.
so cool.
Yeah.
So I
Nobody
don't know.
nobody can tell you anything. Yeah. Yeah. I like that.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is, you can, and I don't have to listen to you
No, exactly.
because I pay
You
my
don't owe
bills.
anybody else. Yeah. Yeah.
I do all of the
Yeah.
things. So
That's great.
yeah, that's what I'm thinking about as my favorite. How about yours?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think you can top that, being able to do whatever you want. I mean, for Chris and I having no kids, we've noticed this as the years have gone by. That is, I think, our favorite thing that we can just like get up
Mm,
and do whatever we want whenever we want.
mm,
Obviously, we both work and we have a lot of obligations, but like one of the things I remember, this is one of my favorites. So, do you have any idea what a corpse flower is?
a corpse flower?
Yeah, it sounds
Kind of.
gross. So
Yeah.
it's like this specific flower, I think it's from, I don't know, Indonesia or something that blooms like one time every, I don't know how many years. It's huge and it
But only for like
stinks.
a short time and it
Yeah,
smells
it
bad.
blooms for like a few
Ugh.
hours and it smells horrible. It smells like a corpse. So our, FIPS are botanical gardens. So they have one, and this was years ago. And like I'm on their email list and everything, and they're like, "Oh my God, the corpse flower is blooming," and it's like a huge deal because like you don't get to see it often at all. And we ended up going like it was a work night and and they stayed open super late because it was again a very limited amount of time. We ended up going at like midnight on a work night, just to experience this thing. We all had to tie like bandanas around our faces because of how bad it smelled. This was pre-COVID, so like we didn't have
Oh,
masks.
wow.
But it was so cool. Like it was just so cool to be able to experience this like, once in a lifetime thing. And
Mm,
if we had kids, there's no chance because they would have had school the next morning. Like, you're not going to get a babysitter last minute at 11
hmm
p.m. So we were just like, this is kind of cool. Like, yes, we'll be tired tomorrow and but we feel like this is worth it and it's something that we can do, just pick up and do whatever we want. So that's like one of the times I really remember taking advantage
mm,
of that.
mm. That's real.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, so I don't know, maybe that's not an adulting thing, maybe that's a child-free thing because you can't always pick up and do whatever you want when you have, people depending on you.
Yeah,
But yeah, yeah, so that's a
that's
separate thing.
real.
We could talk about the child-free life another time if if you want, but
I That would be great. There is nothing like being dual income, no kids, right? Dink, that's what they call it. Sorry, mom and
yeah,
dad, but
yeah,
Brandon and I are
and
loving Dink life.
yeah, yeah, we are
We're
enjoying it as well.
we're
It
loving
wasn't our choice, so but we
it.
are now enjoying it
Yeah,
very much actually.
yeah.
So yeah, and I know people that are very, very big fans. I know people who are like in Facebook groups, like the Child Free Life and
Mm,
I am
you
not in the
know?
Facebook groups. I don't, care to like engage the topic that much, but that corpse flower night sounds so random and so geeky and I get that, but the idea that we could just like do it,
Yeah.
and like we sometimes will pick up and travel for the weekend, like on
Mm.
on a dime, which is really nice. Like just being able to be like, yeah, I want to do this. Do you want to do this? Yeah, okay,
Let's do this.
let's do
I
this.
love that.
Yeah, like why not? So yeah, yeah. Thank God. I think I don't know. I think if we reframe this adulting thing as things that are good for us, right? Self
Mm,
care,
hmm
maybe we won't be so like ugh about it. You
hmm
know?
That's real.
Yeah.
I think that's a really great takeaway is to think about self-care in the way of that. Like this is how adulting happens. But we would love to hear from y'all. What do you think about
Mhm.
adulting? What aspects of adulting really stand out for you that you love or you hate? Drop them below. Let us know if you're like me and you really hate cleaning. Or maybe
Uh,
you are like my husband and you love cleaning. Then God bless you. You are an angel. We would love to hear from y'all. You can email us at connectedwellnesspodcast@gmail.com. We're on Instagram at Connected Wellness Podcast. If you want to reach out to Marianne specifically, she's on Instagram at Wabasaba. If you want to reach out to me specifically, you can reach out to me at Real with Rachel Ann on Instagram. We're also on Facebook as well at Connected Wellness Podcast. Did I remember it? This was the first time saying it in so long. I'm like,
I
dun,
know.
dun,
I
dun, dun.
think
Did I hit all of them?
think you got them all. Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. Alrighty. And on that note, I'm gonna hand it over to Marianne.
Thank you so much for tuning in to our latest episode, 52. And we hope to see you next time. Until then, be well.
Yes, be well, everybody. Bye.